С стартапами за рубежом и представим слово не господин 𝗦𝗛𝗔𝗛-𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗖𝗞.
Спасибо, Юрий. Добрый день, коллеги. Извини меня, я сейчас буду поговорить по-английски, потому мне очень удобно будет. Okay, so everybody is talking about startup, but any business. So what is the motive of any startup or a business? It's making money. At the end of the day, any business should be making enough revenue and profit. So that is the basic idea of any startup, anybody starting business or as an investor. If it is making enough money or it has a potential to make profit in the future, enough potential, that is the first criteria which will attract investors. See, this is the basic, very basic, but people often forget, looking at the great technology, great software, great platform. But look at many of these startups which got listed, many of these technology companies, they never make money. Be it Uber, be it Airbnb, be it in India, Ola, this was this car sharing company. So that is the first thing to look at is that it should have, and also another important thing to look at is that it should have enough scalability of the business. Scalability in the sense that it should be catering to enough of the volume that in the future it can go into a very, very big volume. I mean, that is what the scalability of the platform should be. So any business, any startup, if it has a potential to grow into 100,000, 5,000 times from where it starts, then that is what one investor will look at. This is what in a normal platform which will be looking at people. Then the third and the most important aspect for investors to look at any business, any startup is exit option. So everything is fine. I will put money as an investor, suppose. So how I am going to get my money back? How I am going to get my return on my investment? That becomes the most important aspect. So if you look at, say, like Russia, here that stock market is not so kind of developed, or that culture is not so developed that you can get very easy exit option, that you can go and come out with the IPO, initial public offering, and sell that investors can, the company can sell shares to the investors, and from that money, that original initial investors get the return. So the option here is that most of the startups in Russia are dependent on government funds or some kind of a big, family house funds. Or ultimately, the second option becomes is that they do it such a profitable venture that over a period of time, they are acquired by some bigger company or some other already established businessman at a very high value. So that is the option as far as the Russian, that is the major option. I am not saying that is it. But if you look at the developing markets, say like India, so India has such a huge big ecosystem for the startup and generally for the companies that in the Indian stock exchange, there are more than 6,500 listed companies. Okay, and in last 5 years, if you look at it, there are at least 20 startup companies which have got listed in India. And that is where the one option for Russian startups can be that they can come to India, do some development there, open a company, which can be, your basic product or service, you can develop it here. But for attracting investors, big investors, and for catering to the world market, you need to come to India. You set up a center there or business there, and on that basis you will attract a lot of big investors, because being it becomes an Indian startup, you will easily get the investors. And because investors know that ultimately if it is successful in 3 years, 5 years time, it looks like successful, that it will make money, then they can get it listed in the Indian stock exchanges and from the Wall Street. It is much easier as compared to Russia. So that is what, even if it is not listed, suppose in India, you are an initial startup, you are a first investor or the very few initial investors. So it's called Series A, Series B, Series C. So as and when the journey of startup grows into the bigger, they require more and more money till the time they become profitable, any incubator. So that is where the investors get also an opportunity to exit. Means if I am the Series A investor, I was the first investor into the startup, after the company has grown up to a certain extent and they require more money, and maybe as an initial investor, I think, okay, my limitation is there, I am not going to willing to put more money. So you find another investor which is for Series B, and that Series A investor can sell his investment at a reasonable profit to Series B. So that kind of ecology also, that kind of ecosystem also needs to be there for the startup to grow. And for the new technology, or it's not only about technology, because startup can be anything, and for new ideas to grow and start business. So one needs to have and also another is important point is it should be a unique product, because most of the startups you see, if you are not the first one to start into that particular segment of the business, then you may not even attract many investors as a startup, because it's not a unique, it's already somebody else is doing it, and looking at them and say that, okay, it's not very interesting, already they are doing it and they are still not yet able to achieve that kind of a scale. So what should I, why should I invest money into this? So that is the reason also you have to find a business model or a product or service, whatever, which is unique to that particular region or to that particular country, or maybe if it is, to the universe also. So that uniqueness has to be that product that not many people may be knowing about it, and not many people may have tried that business, and yet it has to be not only just the idea should be unique, but it has to be a profitable idea at the end. I have an experience with some startups as an investment consultant. In India, there was 5 years before, there was a company which had come out with an IoT, Internet of the Things based ticketing solution for metro in India. Okay, in metro and buses, local transportation, and it was based on QR code basis. So it was a new thing, and I had studied that, I had found them, and by the time there were few big investors also. But ultimately, what happened that it was taken over by much bigger transportation company. We all know that Ola. Ola is like your Yandex taxi services in Russia. So Ola is like that, your Ola Uber taxi service. So that company was taken over by Ola. So that is also one of the exit options, as we talked about, is that if somebody bigger company, existing company, can take it over and give the exit option to the investors. And another Russian company which I am right now hand-holding and assisting them. So it is also a small company. 4 years before it was started in its Moscow based, it's into the fertilizer agricultural segment. And they have come out with some product in the nano field, nanotechnology field, where only very less quantity you need to use per hectare. And this already we are holding in the last 3 years in India. We took them, and it was very difficult to find somebody, to get convincing and see. So that is where also the startup needs hand-holding or investment, the initial. And thankfully, very recently, we found one big, large enough investor who was ready to do all the testings and all the requirements of in Indian legislation, because it's in India. Agricultural product is a little bit not a very easy process to get registered and to start selling there. So that is where also one requires a long period of time and money. So these are the few examples of where this startup industry is, where the investors need to be. So any investor who is trying to invest into the startup business, they need to have at least they can't be medium term also. They need to have a horizon of investment of 3 to 7 years minimum. And I have a associate, my friend company in India. They invest into it's a fund. They run a fund which invests into venture capital fund, which invests into some kind of this agricultural and new technology, water nowadays defense. In this what is the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? Everybody has observed that how the kind of a game changer that drones became for Russia in last few months. So those drone technology. So in India also, suddenly everybody is now finding that why not much commercialization on the drone technology was done by say Russia or by say even in India. So suddenly they are finding so many now the drone kind of a development and the technology companies are coming. And I know one or two these companies which my venture capital fund friend has invested into. They are getting into this naval drones, which are kind of submarine drones where nobody sees them inside under the sea drones. So there are this kind of so suddenly sometimes you find the opportunity from the real world, and post that suddenly who comes out with the initial idea, they will attract investment easily. Whether it becomes profitable or not, it's as I told you, it's a 3 to 5 year investment. But these are the kind of unique ideas as we talk about. That pioneering, nobody should have done that, particularly in that region or in that country. So this is what just my thought sharing about that. What attracts investors for startups? So you should look always about profitability. That not because you are getting easily money from the investors. So it's a unique idea and technology great. But if at the end of the day, 3 years, 5 years down the line. So that's what I just wanted to share.
Теперь предоставим слово господину 𝗦𝗛𝗧𝗢𝗖𝗞, который должен нам рассказать про стартапы в комьюнити.